Okay, today we're making pork dumplings. I'm gonna be making the wrappers from scratch, and I've never done that before. My parents don't do that. I thought it would be a nice challenge. Um, it didn't turn out very well. I'm not gonna lie, but I did do a second try, and I'll show pictures of that at the end. The first try was not very good. The dough was I used the water was too hot, and so the dough was too sticky and soft, and it didn't. It wasn't like the thin, harder texture that dumplings should have. And so I tried again later and it worked, but we'll get to that later. And today I wanted to talk about the stigma around Chinese American food and how it's different than other APITA foods, other Asian American foods. Stuff like Thai food, Vietnamese food, Korean food, Japanese food, Indian food, all that stuff, where you can kind of tell that when you say you want Chinese, it's almost like a we discussed before previously how it's almost like a fast food equivalent. It feels like it's something that it's not nice to get. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to get Chinese, it's like we're not going on a date. We're being greasy and we're eating bad. Whereas if you say let's go get Korean food. Let's go get Japanese. Let's go get KBBQ. Let's go get sushi. It's like oh we're going on this nice we're gonna go to a nice restaurant and do this, and where as that's it's true. A lot of the KBBQ places, sushi what is what is it called when you sit down on the counter and there's like a bar thing in Japanese food? I don't remember. I apologize, but those are nicer establishments than your typical Chinese American establishment in a town. And I wanted to kind of, get at why that is. Not saying that it should be this way or it shouldn't be this way, but I'm just saying like why that happens. And so from the same book Chop Suey that I read a little bit of, I didn't read all of it. It says that Chinese immigrants were some of the first Asian groups to arrive to the U.S. I don't know if that's true. I think we went over this in class somewhat, but I don't think that's entirely true. Maybe Chinese immigrants were like a part of, like maybe just they were some of the first, not the first. I think is what it's trying to get at, which I guess could be true. I didn't fact check that, but they did come in the 1800s, which is pretty early for like mass immigration. Obviously, not it's not the Chinese people weren't the first Asian people to show up in the continent of North America. That's not true. But the book says Chinese immigrants were some of the first Asian people to arrive in the U.S. In droves, and because of racial discrimination, the food became stigmatized and as cheap and foreign, and as all the stuff we discussed previous, the evolution of Chinese American food and how it became the way it is today, how it's looked at like it's greasy and it's cheap and it's um, um, so that's why the book says that's maybe why it's Chinese American food is looked at to be this sort of bad thing, whereas Korean and Japanese cuisines were introduced later, where Americans are more, I guess, wanted to experience more exotic foods, like truer to where they're from. I don't know how true this is. This doesn't seem to be. I don't think it's. I'm not gonna take it at face value. I don't really think. I don't really agree with the book here. It's kind of like combating the two, like Chinese versus Korean and Japanese. And we know that there's already been enough of that. So I don't really want to, talk about that too much. But that is what the book said. So that's one of the points where I wanted to hit it. And I wanted to interject my own opinion as to where I don't think that's maybe it could have played a factor in the difference in Chinese American food and Japanese and Korean American foods and other Asian American foods, but um, I don't really agree. Another point I wanted to hit, which I think is definitely true, is the fact that like culinary tourism and like the thing we went over in class with the Korean like wave with Hallyu, and how the government actually like made it a point as to where we're going to export the culture, and that's going to be the product. And food is a big part of that. You see a lot of Korean restaurants now that are doing amazing, and they have amazing food. And China has never done that. It was all up to the Chinese immigrants to make a living. And when you're, a heavily scrutinized race in America in the early 1800s, you have to make a living by one, satisfying the taste of, or the palate of American people, and two, making the food cheap. And so, how to do that? How do you do that? You use cheap ingredients and you use a lot of grease. Like that's what they did, and that's how Chinese food came to be. Chinese American food came to be. Versus where, for you have like the whole Thai food and Japanese, and you have the whole Hallyu movement, which pushed these luxurious foods into America, and it was like, hey, this is Asian food. It's luxurious. It's high class. It's like a, all those kinds of things. And I think that could be a very big contributing factor to why Chinese American food is looked at differently than a lot of these other Asian American foods. And another thing I wanted to talk about was the impact from media. Like other Asian American foods are represented in film like it's a high class kind of thing, like it's kind of like a special thing, whereas Chinese American foods have been stereotyped and like not, I don't want to say mocked, but like it's like in movies and whatnot, it's like, hey, let's get Chinese, let's get takeout. It's put to the side. It's like a convenience thing. It's not because I think you understand what I'm trying to say. And also the thing with health. And also, by the way, here I'm just prepping I finished the dough really fast because it's the same dough as the scallion pancakes, just with warm water instead of hot water. And right now I'm just prepping the aromatics and grating. I'm grating the ginger into the pork, and previously I just got the water out of the cabbage because that's really important. You want to salt the cabbage and then press it to get the water out, so your dumplings aren't left with a bunch of water in it. And I'm just missing the filling here. Another thing I want to talk about was the like health narratives and stuff, and especially how we went over this in class, where it was the use of MSG in Chinese restaurants, and how it was like, it's so unhealthy. This Chinese food is killing you. It's so bad. But a lot of Asian cooking uses MSG. It's not just Chinese food. I feel like people in the West, or the media in the West, just wanted to push that because they're Chinese, and it doesn't help that the Chinese people, and the Chinese government is communist, and the West doesn't really like communism. But that's not for me to discuss. I'm talking about food here. That health narrative, as to where you have Japanese food where it's like sushi is healthy. There's lots of veggies. There's not oil. It's not doused in all these. It's not. They don't use MSG in a lot of these other Asian American foods, and that kind of made it so that Chinese American food is looked at differently. Here I'm just showing the dumplings. I pan fried them. This is the second batch, and my girlfriend and me made it together, so that's hence why they look a little bit better, because this was her doing. She wrapped the dumplings. I just made the flour. I made the dough and everything, so that's why it looks prettier than the first one, which looked like a bunch of clumps. But yeah, that's it.